Nobody noticed when Rilla entered the grand conclave chamber. This was normal. The Fenari were easy to overlook. Standing barely 3 feet tall with soft fur the color of autumn leaves and large, gentle eyes, Rilla looked like something that belonged in a garden, not a galactic parliament. The chamber itself was designed to make small species feel smaller. Crystal pillars rose hundreds of feet toward a ceiling lost in artificial clouds. Seats climbed in endless tiers, filled with delegates from 1,000 worlds. The Vorthani sat in their gravity-adjusted platforms, their massive bodies casting shadows over entire sections. The Krellian Trade Coalition occupied the eastern wing, their insectoid forms clicking and buzzing with constant calculation. The hegemony of Dross, reptilian and cold, watched everything with ancient, patient eyes. Rilla had traveled 14 days to reach Station Meridian. She had left behind her family, her small pottery workshop, and the village where 5 generations of her ancestors had lived. She had come because her people had chosen her to speak for them. 8 billion Fenari were about to die. The asteroid cluster had appeared on their primitive sensors 3 months ago. Displaced by a neutron star's gravity, over 200 rocks now tumbled toward Fenara Prime. The largest was 12 kilometers wide. When it struck, nothing would survive, not the forests, not the rivers, not the children who played in meadows that had known peace for 10,000 years. The Fenari had no military. They had no weapons. Their ships carried produce and artwork between nearby systems. They could not save themselves. So Rilla had come to ask for help. When her turn finally came to speak, she walked to the central platform. Her feet made no sound on the polished floor. She looked up at the countless faces staring down at her, and she began. She told them about her world. She showed them images of rolling farmlands where her people grew food they shared freely with any who asked. She displayed the asteroid trajectories, the impact calculations, the timeline. 40 days. That was all they had. She asked for ships, any ships, vessels with tractor beams to push the rocks away, mining lasers to break them apart, anything that could help. She spoke for 11 minutes. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. Then the Vorthani delegate responded. His voice was deep and bored. Emergency deflection missions required 6 months of planning, he explained. Environmental impact assessments had to be filed. Committees had to meet. Protocols existed for reasons. The Krellian coalition agreed. Diverting ships would disrupt their shipping schedules. Quarterly projections would suffer. Shareholders would be unhappy. The hegemony of Dross simply stated that the Fenari held no strategic value. Resources spent saving them would be resources wasted. One by one, every major power found an excuse. Rilla listened to each rejection. She did not cry. She did not beg. She simply stood there as the galaxy's most powerful species explained why her people were not worth saving. The session ended with her request being tabled for review in 90 days. By then, Fenara Prime would be dust and memory. Rilla walked out of the chamber in a daze. The corridors of Station Meridian buzzed with activity around her. Merchants haggled, diplomats whispered, soldiers patrolled. Nobody looked at the small Fenari walking among them. Nobody cared. She found a quiet alcove near a viewport and sat down. Outside, ships of every design drifted past. So many ships, so much power, and none of it for her people. She did not know how long she sat there before the human appeared. The woman was tall by Fenari standards, with dark skin and gray hair cut short. She wore a simple flight suit, worn at the elbows and patched in several places. Her face carried the lines of someone who had spent decades squinting at stars. She sat down next to Rilla without asking permission. "I heard your speech," the woman said. Her voice was warm but direct. "I was in the observer gallery." Rilla looked at her. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community. They had only been among the stars for 60 years. Most species considered them primitive, emotional, and insignificant. "Why were you listening?" Rilla asked. The woman smiled slightly. "I listen to a lot of speeches. Most of them are garbage, politicians talking about nothing. Yours was different. You were asking for help because your people are going to die. That seemed worth paying attention to. Rilla felt something crack inside her chest. The simple acknowledgement of her pain was almost too much to bear. "No one will help us," she whispered. The woman was quiet for a moment, then she leaned forward. "My name is Nina Okonkwo," she said. "I captain a cargo hauler called the Persistent Hope. It is not a warship, it is not powerful, but it is mine and I can take it wherever I choose." She met Rilla's eyes directly. "Tell me everything about these asteroids, every detail, every calculation. I want to understand exactly what we are dealing with." Rilla stared at her. "Why, what can one cargo ship do?" Nina Okonkwo stood up and offered her hand to the small Fenari. "I do not know yet," she admitted. "But I know that I am not going to sit here while 8 billion people wait to die because some committee needed more time to think about it." Rilla took the human's hand and rose to her feet. For the first time in weeks, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. The message traveled at the speed of light across human communication networks. It was not encrypted. It was not official. It was simply one captain talking to anyone who would listen. Nina recorded it in her quarters aboard the Persistent Hope, with nothing behind her but a plain metal wall and a faded photograph of Earth. "My name is Nina Okonkwo. Most of you do not know me. That is fine. I am not important. What I am about to tell you is..." She explained about the Fenari. She described a peaceful world of farmers and artists who had harmed no one in 10,000 years of recorded history. She detailed the asteroid cluster, the timeline, and the Assembly's refusal to help. "They asked everyone," Nina said. "They stood in front of the most powerful species in the galaxy and begged for their lives. Everyone said no." She paused and took a breath. "I am going to Fenara Prime. I am going to try to help them. My ship is old and my crew is small. I cannot save a planet alone, but I can show up. I can try." Her eyes hardened. "If you have a ship, I am asking you to come with me. I cannot promise payment. I cannot promise safety. I can only promise that if we do nothing, 8 billion people will die knowing that the galaxy did not care enough to lift a finger." She leaned closer to the camera. "That is not who we are." The message ended. Nina did not expect much. Humans were scattered across dozens of systems, working as merchants, miners, and hired labor. They had no unified government, no military fleet, no obligation to answer. Most would probably ignore her completely. She was wrong. Within 3 hours, the first response came from a mining vessel called the Broken Hammer. Its captain was a broad-shouldered man named Dmitry Volkov who had spent 30 years cracking asteroids for their metals. His message was brief. "I know rocks. I am coming." The second response came from a research ship named Starling. Dr. Amara Osai, a quiet woman with steady hands and brilliant eyes, offered her vessel's advanced sensors and her team of 3 scientists. "We can map the cluster," she said. "Show you exactly what you are facing." Then came the gray morning, a retired military transport that had been sitting in storage for 15 years. Its owner was Samuel Reyes, 71 years old and supposedly retired. He had flown combat missions before most of the current generation was born. "My ship still works," he said. "So do I." After that, the responses came too fast to track. A family freighter from the outer colonies. A converted luxury yacht whose owner had more money than sense but wanted to help anyway. A pair of brothers who ran a salvage operation and figured asteroid debris was just salvage that had not happened yet. Mining craft, cargo haulers, passenger shuttles, and personal vessels barely large enough to hold 2 people. They came from everywhere. They came with whatever they had. 2 days after Nina sent her message, 37 human ships gathered in orbit around Station Meridian. They represented no nation, no corporation, no official organization. They were merchants and miners and scientists and retirees and adventurers who had heard a call and answered it. Rilla stood on the observation deck of the Persistent Hope and watched them arrive. She could not understand what she was seeing. Why? She asked Nina, who stood beside her. You have nothing to gain from this. The assembly will not reward you. The Fenari have nothing to offer. Why are these people here? Nina watched a battered mining ship maneuver into formation with the others. Do you know what Earth is like? She asked. Rilla shook her head. It is a death world, Nina said. High gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere. Our ancestors survived by working together. One human alone was food for something bigger. But a group of humans could face anything. She turned to look at Rilla. We learned something in those early days. We learned that when someone needs help, you help them. Not because you will get something in return, not because it is logical. You help them because that is what you do, because tomorrow you might be the one who needs help. But you do not know us, Rilla said. We are strangers. Nina smiled. So you asked, that is enough. The fleet began its final preparations. Captains who had never met coordinated supply transfers. Engineers shared technical specifications. Someone organized a communication network so all 37 ships could talk to each other in real time. It was chaos, it was beautiful. Rilla watched it all with wonder. She had spent weeks believing that the galaxy was cold and uncaring. She had stood before the assembly and seen only indifference. Now she was surrounded by humans who had dropped everything, risked everything, for people they had never met. I do not understand you, she said softly. Nina laughed. Neither do most species. They think we are reckless, emotional, irrational. Are you? Probably, Nina put a hand on Rilla's shoulder. But we are also here, and in 40 days, when your people are still alive, they can call us whatever they want. The fleet departed that evening. 37 ships, carrying fewer than 200 humans total, flew toward a dying world. The assembly did not notice. To the great powers of the galaxy, it was not worth mentioning. They would remember later. Fenara Prime was beautiful in ways that hurt to look at. Blue oceans, green forests, rivers that sparkled like silver threads woven across continents. From orbit, Rilla could see the patchwork of farms where her people had grown food for generations. In 28 days, all of it would be gone. The asteroid cluster hung in the distance like a swarm of angry stones. Dr. Amara Ose had spent the entire journey mapping it with Starling's sensors. Now she shared her findings with the fleet. 217 individual objects, she reported. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were worried. Most are small, house-sized, dangerous but manageable. 43 are large enough to cause regional devastation. And 3. She paused. 3 are extinction-level threats. The biggest is 12 kilometers across. If it hits, nothing survives. The captains listened in silence. Nina stood at the center of the holographic display, studying the projected trajectories. Every line led to Fenara Prime. Then we start with what we can handle, she said. Small rocks first, build momentum, learn what works. Dmitry Volkov cracked his knuckles. My crew has been breaking asteroids for 30 years. We know how to make rocks into smaller rocks. The fleet spread out across the cluster's leading edge. Mining ships positioned themselves near medium-sized targets. Cargo haulers stood ready to push debris clear. Scout vessels darted between the larger objects, gathering data. The work began. The first asteroid was roughly the size of a house. The broken hammer approached it carefully, extending its industrial mining laser. The beam cut into dark stone, heating it until cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. Then Dmitry fired a kinetic charge into the weakened point. The asteroid shattered into 1,000 harmless fragments. Across the fleet's communication channel, someone cheered. Then everyone cheered. 1 down, Nina said. 216 to go. The humans worked in shifts, 18 hours on, 6 hours off. Some ships handled demolition. Others used tractor beams to nudge rocks off course. The smallest vessels served as scouts and messengers, racing between work sites with updates and supplies. Problems appeared immediately. Equipment broke down. Calculations proved wrong. An asteroid that should have shattered cleanly instead broke into two large pieces, each still deadly. The humans adapted. A young engineer named Yuki Tanaka designed a system for chaining multiple ships together, combining their tractor beam strength. It was crude but effective. A rock that one ship could not move, three ships working together could push clear. An old pilot named Samuel Reyes realized that the Persistent Hope's cargo containers could be used as kinetic impactors. Fill them with debris, accelerate them toward a target, and let physics do the rest. It was messy, but it worked. Every day, the cluster grew smaller. On day 8, disaster nearly struck. A demolition charge detonated too early, sending debris flying in unexpected directions. A scout ship piloted by a young man named Diego Reyes, Samuel's grandson, took a direct hit. His engines failed. His life support flickered. The gray morning was there in minutes. Samuel brought his old ship alongside the crippled scout and extended a docking tube. Diego climbed through, shaken but alive. His ship was lost, he was not. That night the fleet gathered for a memorial of sorts. Not for a death, but for a reminder. They had been lucky. The next time they might not be. Nina addressed them all. We knew this would be dangerous. We came anyway. That has not changed. But let us be careful. Let us be smart. Fenara Prime needs us alive. Rilla watched from the Persistent Hope's bridge. She had been with the fleet since the beginning, serving as a translator and liaison with her people on the surface. Every day she sent updates to Fenara Prime. Every day she told them that help was coming. She had seen humans argue passionately about the best way to destroy a rock. She had watched them curse at broken equipment and then repair it with whatever materials they could find. She had observed them share meals together, tell stories, and laugh at terrible jokes. They were strange creatures, loud, emotional, completely unwilling to accept that something could not be done. She loved them for it. You work so hard, she told Nina one evening. Do your people ever rest? Nina smiled tiredly. We will rest when your people are safe. But you do not even know us. We are nothing to the galaxy. The assembly made that very clear. Nina was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that Rilla would remember for the rest of her life. The assembly sees value in power, in resources, in what species can do for them. She looked out at the stars. Humans see value in something else. We see value in people, in lives, in the simple fact that you exist and you deserve to keep existing. She turned to Rilla. You are not nothing. You are 8 billion people who asked for help. That is enough. That will always be enough. Outside the viewport, another asteroid shattered into dust. 20 days remained. The humans called it Target 1. Rilla's people called it the World Ender. Both names were accurate. 12 kilometers of iron and nickel tumbled slowly through space, so massive that it bent light around its edges. Every sensor in the fleet had measured it. Every calculation had confirmed the same terrible truth. They could not stop it. Nina stared at the holographic projection in the Persistent Hope's briefing room. Target 1 filled the display, rotating slowly, mockingly. In 18 days, it would strike Fenara Prime's largest continent. The impact would vaporize everything within 1,000 kilometers instantly. The debris cloud would block the sun for decades. Nothing would survive. Run the numbers again, she said. Dr. Amara Osai shook her head. I have run them. 40 times. Even with all 37 ships working together, we cannot generate enough force to change its trajectory. It is simply too massive. What about breaking it apart like the others? Our equipment cannot penetrate deep enough. We would need to drill to the core and place charges there. Even then, the margin for error is almost zero. If the fragments are too large, they still destroy the planet. If they are too small, they might burn up safely. Dmitry Volkov sat in the corner, his face dark. Maybe we focus on the other asteroids, save most of the planet, except that some will die. No, Nina's voice was sharp. We did not come here to save most of them. We came to save all of them. Then tell me how. Dmitry stood up, frustration breaking through his usual calm. I have been breaking rocks my whole life. That thing out there is not a rock. It is a mountain. It is a moon. We cannot push it and we cannot break it, and we have 18 days. Silence filled the room. Rilla watched the humans. For weeks, she had seen them solve impossible problems through stubbornness and creativity. Now, for the first time, she saw doubt on their faces. She saw defeat creeping into their eyes. She felt her hope beginning to crack. Then Samuel Reyes spoke. The old man had been quiet throughout the meeting, sitting in the back with his grandson Diego. When he stood, his joints creaked audibly. He walked to the holographic display and studied Target 1 with ancient, thoughtful eyes. "I remember something," he said slowly. "From before I flew ships, when I was young I worked in mines on Mars, real mines, underground, dangerous." He traced a line across the asteroid's surface with his finger. "Sometimes we found rocks too big to break from outside, too solid, too stubborn, so we did not try to break them from outside." He tapped the center of the display. "We broke them from inside." Dr. Osa leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Controlled demolition. You drill into the core, you find the weak points, the hollow spaces. Every rock has them, even the big ones. You place charges exactly where they need to be. Then you light them all at once." He turned to face the room. "The rock does not just break, it shatters. It comes apart along its own fault lines the way it was always meant to come apart. The pieces fly outward away from each other. If you calculate correctly, they miss the planet." "Entirely." Nina's eyes widened. "Can it work on something that size?" "I do not know. I have never tried it on anything bigger than a building." Samuel smiled slightly. "But I am old. I have nothing to lose by trying." The room erupted into activity. Dr. Ose pulled up geological surveys of Target 1, searching for density variations that might indicate hollow spaces. Yuki Tanaka began calculating explosive yields. Dmitry Volkov listed the mining charges available across the fleet. For the first time in days, the humans had a plan. But the plan required something dangerous. Someone would have to land on Target 1. Someone would have to drill into its core, crawling through tunnels of unstable rock while a planet killer tumbled through space. Someone would have to place the charges by hand and hope the calculations were correct. "I will go," Nina said. "No," Dmitry stepped forward. "You lead the fleet. I know rocks better than anyone here. I will go." "I designed the charge placement system," Yuki added. "I should be there to implement it." Soon, half the captains were volunteering. Arguments broke out about who was most qualified, who could be spared, who had the best chance of success. Nina held up her hand for silence. "We will decide who goes later. Right now we prepare. Every ship contributes charges. Every engineer reviews the calculations. Every pilot practices the approach." She looked at the holographic asteroid, at the monster that had seemed unstoppable just minutes ago. "We have 18 days to do something that has never been done before. We have no backup plan. We have no margin for error." Her jaw tightened. "So we will not make errors. We will work harder than we have ever worked. And when we are done, that rock will be nothing but dust." The humans scattered to their tasks. Rilla remained, staring at Target 1. Somewhere inside that mountain of iron was the key to her people's survival. She hoped the humans could find it in time. Target 1 looked different up close. From orbit, it had seemed like a dark stone hanging in the void. Now, as the shuttle descended toward its surface, Nina could see the truth. This was no stone. This was a world unto itself. Craters pocked its surface like ancient wounds. Ridges of metal rose and fell like frozen waves. The asteroid rotated slowly, and as it turned, shadows shifted across landscapes that had never known light. Nina sat in the pilot's seat of the modified mining shuttle. Behind her, Dmitry Volkov checked the drilling equipment for the 100th time. Yuki Tanaka studied a tablet displaying the charge placement calculations, her lips moving silently as she verified each number. The shuttle touched down in a crater near the asteroid's calculated center of mass. The landing was rough. The ground shifted beneath them, and for a moment Nina thought they would tip over. Then the shuttle's legs found purchase and held. "We are down," she reported to the fleet. Her voice was steady even though her hands were shaking. The work began immediately. Dmitri operated the drill while Nina and Yuki guided its positioning. The bit chewed into iron and nickel, sending vibrations through the shuttle's frame. Progress was measured in centimeters. Every meter they gained was a small victory against the clock. Hours passed. Drill bits broke and were replaced. The composition of the rock changed without warning, requiring constant adjustments. Yuki calculated and recalculated, ensuring that their tunnel would reach the hollow core that Dr. Osai's sensors had detected. Above them, the fleet waited. Rilla waited. 8 billion Fenari waited, watching their sky and praying to whatever gods they believed in. 16 hours after landing, the drill broke through into empty space. "We found it," Dmitri breathed. His face was gray with exhaustion, but his eyes were bright. "The core, it is there." The hollow chamber was larger than they had expected. Ancient volcanic activity had created a bubble inside the asteroid, a pocket of nothing surrounded by kilometers of solid metal. It was exactly what they needed. Nina entered the chamber first, lowering herself through the drill shaft on a cable. Her helmet lights illuminated walls of crystallized iron, beautiful in a way she had no time to appreciate. She unclipped from the cable and began placing charges. Dmitri followed, then Yuki. They worked in silence, communicating through hand signals and the occasional word. Each charge had to be positioned exactly. Each wire had to be connected correctly. One mistake would mean the difference between salvation and extinction. They were halfway done when the asteroid shifted. It was subtle at first, a tremor in the walls, a slight change in the rotation. Then a section of the chamber ceiling collapsed, showering them with debris. "Out," Nina shouted. "Everyone out now." They scrambled for the drill shaft. Dmitri reached it first and began climbing. Yuki was next. Nina was last, and as she grabbed the cable, another tremor shook the chamber. The shaft walls groaned, cracks spiderwebbed through the rock above her. She climbed faster than she had ever climbed in her life. They emerged onto the surface to find their shuttle damaged. The landing struts had collapsed on one side. The engines sparked and sputtered. "Can we take off?" Yuki asked. Dmitri examined the damage. His expression told Nina everything she needed to know before he spoke. "Maybe, maybe not. The engines might fire. They might also explode." Nina looked up at the stars. Fenara Prime was visible now, a blue-green dot growing larger every hour. She thought about the Fenari children who would never grow up. She thought about the farms and forests that would burn. She opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Okonkwo. We have placed approximately 60% of the charges. The tunnel has partially collapsed. Our shuttle is damaged. We may not be able to extract." Silence answered her. Then a familiar voice crackled through her helmet. "This is the gray morning. Hold your position. I am coming down." Nina's heart lurched. "Samuel, no, the debris field is too dense. You cannot land here." "I have been flying ships since before you were born, Captain. I can land anywhere I damn well please." The gray morning descended through the chaos of tumbling rocks and spinning fragments. Samuel Reyes flew his ancient transport with a precision that defied his age. The ship touched down 50 meters from the damaged shuttle, and its cargo ramp lowered. "Get in," Samuel said through the comm. "All of you now." They ran. Behind them, Nina triggered the remote detonator for the charges they had placed. The explosion began as they reached the gray morning's ramp. Nina threw herself inside and slammed the airlock controls. The ship lifted off hard and fast, pulling away from Target 1 as the asteroid started to break apart. It was not perfect. The charges had been incomplete, but as Nina watched through the viewport, she saw something beautiful. Target 1 was shattering, not into 2 pieces or 3, but into thousands. The hollow core had done exactly what Samuel predicted. The asteroid was falling apart along its own fault lines, fragments flying outward in every direction. Dr. Osai's voice came through the calm, filled with disbelief. It worked. The fragments are scattering. 93% will miss the planet entirely. The rest will burn up in atmosphere. Nina slumped against the bulkhead. Her entire body ached. Her lungs burned. She had never been more exhausted in her life. But she was smiling. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." The sky above Fenara Prime rained fire for 3 days. Fragments of what had been Target 1 entered the atmosphere and burned, painting the heavens with streaks of orange and gold. The Fenari watched from their villages and cities, no longer afraid. These were not death coming to claim them. These were the remains of a threat that would never hurt them. The human fleet spent 2 more weeks clearing the remaining asteroids. By the time they finished, not a single rock larger than a fist remained on a collision course. Fenara Prime was safe. 8 billion lives had been saved. The invitation came on the last day of cleanup. Every human was welcome on the surface. Every captain, every crew member, every person who had answered Nina's call. The Fenari wanted to thank them properly. Nina had never visited an alien world before. As the persistent hope descended through clouds that smelled of flowers, she felt something she had not felt in years: wonder. The landing field was surrounded by Fenari. Thousands of them, small and soft and beautiful, their autumn-colored fur rippling in the breeze. When Nina stepped off the ramp, they began to sing. It was not a song of words. It was something older, a melody that spoke of gratitude and love and the simple joy of being alive. It filled the air and wrapped around the humans like a warm blanket. Nina had to stop walking because she could not see through her tears. The celebration lasted for days. Every village wanted to host the humans. Every family wanted to share their food and stories. Children climbed onto human shoulders and refused to let go. Elders pressed gifts into human hands and would not accept refusal. The humans tried to explain that they did not need thanks. They had not come for rewards, but the Fenari did not understand. How could anyone do so much and want nothing in return? On the 3rd day, Rilla addressed her people. She stood on a platform in the capital city with the human fleet captains behind her. Below, millions of Fenari had gathered to listen. 40 days ago, she said, I stood before the Galactic Assembly and asked for help. I told them our world was dying. I showed them our children. I begged them to save us. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. They said no, every one of them. The Vorthani needed more time. The Krellians needed their ships. The hegemony of Dross needed nothing from us, and so we meant nothing to them. She turned to look at the humans. Then I met these people. They did not ask what we could offer. They did not calculate our strategic value. They heard that we needed help, and they came. Rilla faced the crowd again. I learned something important in these past weeks. The galaxy is vast and often cold. Many species care only for power and profit, but somewhere among the stars there are humans, and humans listen. The crowd erupted in cheers and song and tears. Later, after the speeches and celebrations, Nina found herself alone with Rilla on a hillside overlooking the capital. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded Nina of Earth. Thank you, Rilla said quietly. Those words are not enough. They will never be enough, but I do not know what else to say. Nina watched the sunset. You do not have to say anything. This is what humans do. It is who we are. But why? Rilla looked up at her with those large, gentle eyes. I have thought about this every day since we met. You had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Why did you come? Nina was quiet for a long moment. When I was a child, she finally said, my grandmother told me a story. There was a fire in her village when she was young. Her family lost everything. They had no food, no shelter, nothing. They thought they would die. She smiled at the memory. But then strangers came. People from other villages, other regions, other countries. They brought food and blankets and tools. They helped rebuild. They asked for nothing in return. Why? Rilla asked. Because someone had helped them once, and someone had helped those people before that. It goes back forever. every generation helping the next, every person reaching out to the one who needs it. Nina looked down at Rilla. We did not learn to be this way. We just never forgot. Every human knows what it feels like to need help and have no one come. We decided long ago that we would be the ones who come. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. What happens now? Rilla asked. Will you stay? Nina shook her head. We have lives back home, jobs, families. The fleet will leave tomorrow. She paused. But we will not forget you, and if you ever need us again, you know how to call. The next morning, the human fleet prepared to depart. Ships lifted off one by one, their crews waving goodbye to the crowds below. The Fenari sang them into the sky. Nina was the last to leave. She stood on the Persistent Hope's ramp and looked out at the world she had helped save. Rilla stood below, small and brave. Goodbye, my friend, Nina called down. Not goodbye, Rilla called back. The word in our language is different. It means until we meet again. Nina smiled. Until we meet again, then. The Persistent Hope rose into the sky of Fenara Prime. Below, millions of Fenari watched the human ships become dots of light among the stars. The children of that world would grow up knowing a simple truth. When their people had been abandoned by the galaxy, humans had crossed the void to save them. Not for power, not for profit, but because someone had asked. And humans always listen.